Thank you for joining us on our QTV Business and Economy program. The Business and Economy program is intended to promote the ideals of a corporate Gambia identity with the objective of forging partnerships through dialogue between the public and the private sector, civil society organizations, and the international community. In today's episode, we continue the discussions on the role of women in our economic development aspirations. It is now a known and established fact that for all progressive societies in the world, those that have managed some degree of realization of economic growth, women have been mainstreamed into the economic, social, and political mainstreams. What is happening at the level of the Gambia? Is this the case, or has women empowerment been more of a lip service than anything else? I have invited a distinguished personality in the name of Mrs. Beatrice Prom Mbodj. She is a former director of corporate services at the Gambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry and currently serves as the Chief Executive Officer of the recently established Gambia Women's Chamber of Commerce. Mrs. Mbodj, it's a pleasure to have you on the Business and Economy program, and thank you for honoring our invitation.
Thank you very much. I'm indeed very honored to be invited to talk to you today.
I followed with enthusiasm the launching of the Gambia Women's Chamber of Commerce, and I must publicly apologize for not having been able to honor the invitation as a result of prior commitments. But people from CFAN who were invited, of which I am a member, Dr. Ture in particular, provided me an update in terms of what obtained during the luncheon ceremony. And I must congratulate you as the Chief Executive Officer and the founding members, of which you are also a member, in terms of this initiative that you have taken. You recently retired from the Gambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and here we are, a few years down the line, maybe less than 2, if my calculations are right.
Yes.
And you are now heading seemingly a very relevant institution. What is behind the creation of the Gambia Women's Chamber of Commerce?
Thank you very much. I believe it's a very pertinent question. And the only reason is because women-owned enterprises need more attention. Women-owned enterprises need to be supported to get to another level. And when you deal with female entrepreneurs, you don't only look at them as entrepreneurs, you have to look at the woman as a whole. All the conditions surrounding her business, her family, her children, everything. We're not claiming to be able to resolve all those issues, but we know we can refer the woman to institutions that can give her support in those other issues that surround her business to ensure that her business works well. Because if her children are not feeling well, it's going to affect her business. If her husband is not supporting the business, it's going to affect the business. So we have to look at all those issues before we now handhold the female entrepreneur to the next level.
Okay. If I hear you right, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, there is in existence the Gambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And I know that there would be women businesses and entrepreneurs who are part and parcel of the Gambia Chamber of Commerce. You have worked at the Chamber for some time, and you have been instrumental even in terms of the transformation that has happened at the Chamber, because when you look at the Gambia Chamber of Commerce today, and when you look at the Gambia Chamber of Commerce a few years back, I mean as recent as 2010, 2011, 2012, a number of meaningful developments have happened in terms of its mandate. Yes, a whole lot more needs to be done, but if credit should be given, credit should also be given to some of the strides that they have made. So is it a case from the point that you're making in terms of the respective needs of the woman entrepreneur? Because the woman who is central in the family has responsibilities for the family, responsibility to her children, responsibility to her partner, and responsibility to also to society, as we know it. So is this the reason the special needs, I would take it that the special needs of the woman entrepreneur, the woman businesswoman, is not being addressed at the chamber? And for this reason, the women, perhaps after, because I know women, they just don't jump and do something. They would have been harboring something, for something to be done about it, and if it's not done, ultimately they'll do what they need to do. Is this the case? Is it that there isn't a special lens, if you will, that looks at these micro, chasms of the needs of women to address them, and hence they say, wait a minute, we have to do what we have to do?
I believe you are right, Ben. I was the focal point for women at the level of the chamber, and it is a general chamber taking care of everybody. So obviously that tells you that the special focus you would have been looking for women would not be there exclusively, because the chamber has to take care of the needs of every other entrepreneur, being young, being a man, being a woman, or any of those sectors. So therefore, at the level of the chamber, the woman is treated as an entrepreneur, because she came to register as an entrepreneur, and that's it. And from there, support is given, but not to the length that we would have wished it to happen. That's the reality. So now setting up the women's chamber is to address the gap that was there all along. And that gap is taking care of the special needs of the women. And mind you also, women feel more comfortable talking to another woman than talking to a man about some of the issues that surround their business, not only limited to doing business, but like I said, all the other family issues. So this is one of the reasons why we decided we needed to do more. And you'd be surprised to know that some of the women, they've been doing business for the past 10 years, but didn't get enough information as to, for example, what we are trying to do is getting them to register. A lot of them are informal, and that's the reality. And what we are telling them is that if you want to benefit from any of the support that is coming into the country or that is already existing here, you need to be formalized, because nobody would give support to a woman who does not have a name on a business registration. And we're beginning to see that, because even when you want to get assistance, you'd be asked two questions. One is, are you formally registered? The other one is, are you trained as an entrepreneur, so that we're sure that the support you're getting would be used in the right way. And that's the other thing. Most of them don't know where to go for these trainings. Most of them don't know where to get basic information about what can move their business to the other level. When I spoke to particularly one that had done business for 10 years, my first question was, are you formally registered? She said, no. Do you belong to a chamber of commerce so that you can get some business advisory and business development support? And she said, no. And I'm like, but why? She said, I don't know, nobody told me. And there are many more cases like that. I could highlight a number of issues. And this told me that there's a lot more to be done than we had already done at the level of the chamber. But all the same, I must give credit to the Chamber of Commerce for the work that has been done over the years for entrepreneurs in general.
Let me come to a pertinent point here in respect of the realities that exist in our economy. Gambia continues to be a male-dominated society, and we know where that stems from. And we can relate the realities of the dominance of men today to perhaps generations past in terms of social upbringing, culture, and the perspective at the time, some 10, 15, 20 years, 30, 40 years ago, in terms of the role of women and the role of men. So it will take some time to correct this male dominance, even though we see that it is changing. You have created the Gambia Women's Chamber of Commerce, and you made the point that women are more comfortable discussing their issues with other women, and rightly so, because the same situation holds for men as well. I don't know to what degree, but in general, that is the case. In the event that the Gambia Women's Chamber of Commerce becomes successful in terms of its mandate, and when I say successful in terms of its mandate, I'm making reference to having a greater proportion of women who are in business or women who are aspiring to be in business to be part and parcel of the chamber. Would the Gambia Women's Chamber of Commerce, in recognition of the fact that of the dominance of male in decision making in this country, would the Gambia Women's Chamber of Commerce run the risk of exclusion in terms of opportunities? And is this something that the Gambia Women's Chamber of Commerce is cognizant of? And if yes, I hope you would have looked at a way to ensure that that risk exclusion would not become an eventuality.
Thank you very much. I want to say that since we started, we've been establishing partnerships. And these partnerships, they're not exclusively with women-owned businesses or women-run institutions. They're general partnerships, because we need that we understand that we have to assert ourselves first. Once we assert ourselves in the society and people believe in us, whatever should come to us would. And this is why we are partnering also with men, so that, like you said, we don't run the risk of being excluded. No. We appreciate that, like when you introduced saying the economy cannot progress without the input of women. So also women realize that whatever we're doing, we cannot achieve it without the input of men. So we have a space for men. We work with men, but when it comes to looking at the needs of women, there is where we put emphasis on women-owned businesses, and that's why we only registered women-owned businesses. We don't register like groups of women or a business that's not owned by a woman. And I'll tell you one thing, I think the men are also realizing that we all need each other. Since we set up this chamber, we've had men calling and making inquiries and wanting their wives to be part of us. And I think that's a great plus for us. That's a great plus also for the men, because now they realize no matter what I'm doing, if my wife also gets involved and it's successful, the success is for the whole family. It's not just for the wife. It's if a successful wife stands up, the first thing she would say is, I want to thank my husband for the support. And that's why we are also associating with the Gambia Chamber of Commerce. We've registered with them as a member, with the hope that when facilities come into this country for women, it will be channeled through us. And whatever comes to the chamber will be channeled through us, and also whatever comes through us will work with the chamber to achieve that goal. Okay. So we're really looking at all possible ways of achieving our goal. Even though we're a women-owned organization, we're still partnering with men to move our agenda forward.
I want to touch on another point that you made in terms of formalization, registration of the women that would have interest in becoming part and parcel of your chamber. You spoke on the fact that most of the businesses out there operate within the informal sector. You've spoke on the fact that some of the women who are expressing interest, not only are they operating in the informal sector, but don't even have things like records and stuff like that. If the Gambia Women's Chamber of Commerce is to become successful, it would have to pay a lot of attention and focus in terms of helping these women who operate within the informal sector to become formalized, and perhaps provide business advisory services like the need and relevance of keeping records, not only keeping records, but ultimately and perhaps with time even have accounts and stuff so that they would be able to benefit from opportunities that would surface in the future. Is this an area that the Gambia Women Chamber of Commerce is building focus on? Because I cannot envisage the success of the Gambia Women Chamber of Commerce without addressing this major challenge, not only for women businesses, but for men businesses as well, and us as a country. The informal sector is bigger than the formal sector in this country. And if anything should happen in terms of economic development, government, Chamber of Commerce as it were, Gambia Women's Chamber of Commerce as it were, but focusing on issues of women, must look into this issue of informality of the economy. What are the plans of the Gambia Women's Chamber of Commerce in helping women who are in the formal sector to become formalized?
Let me be general first before I come to that specific answer. Our value proposition, first, is to help them get access to finance. We know all the reasons surrounding access to finance. Second is to help them to get access to markets. Because the Gambia, as we know, is a small country. But we have the whole of ECOWAS, we hold the whole of Africa, and the rest of the world to connect to. We also, one of the third value proposition is capacity building of women. The next one is connecting them to networks, platforms where they can network and do business. And finally, providing access to data, which we will all come to. But going back to your specific point about registration, we try to show them the benefits to be enjoyed if your business is registered. And like I said earlier, if you want a facility with the bank, you will not get it if your business is not registered. If you don't hold an account with that bank, you will not get access to any other, like I tell them, it's like traveling. And you go to the airport, you want to travel, and you're asked, where is your passport? And you don't have a passport, immigration will not let you go through. So also in business, you must have your registration in your name. So that's the guarantee of the person giving you support to know that I am supporting this particular business. Before also, most of them being in the informal sector was about the high taxes that we are all still working on. But at least there is the single window business registration where each one of them would pay only $500, no matter what your business is, to register your business. And then after that, they need to go to GRA and a file would be opened in their name. And then because their turnover is less than $500,000, they would pay 3% of any sales that they have made within a particular month and then file in their quarterly returns. So I think the process is a lot more simpler now, although we are facing challenges at the single window, because also it was meant that within 24 hours you should get your business certificate. But now I understand there are some things going on to upgrade the system or to migrate the system so that it would go rural. So it takes a lot of time now for people to get their business registration. So these are some of the things measures that government itself had put in place. But again, most of the women did not know that these measures are in place to also support them to formalize. Because before you would have paid a lot more to register a sole proprietorship than now with a single window. So as part of our work, we believe we should become some kind of clearinghouse for information, because we've seen that is very relevant. If you don't give the women all the information they need, they will not be convinced to formalize their business. So we need to give them information, and then formalizing, now you really have to look at your books, look at your customer service. So we are putting a lot of emphasis on capacity building. Capacity building as an entrepreneur, and then having specific trainings depending on the needs of the individual female entrepreneur. Right now, what we're doing, we've not yet started our own training, but we are referring them to the Empretech training, which I think is one of the best so far in the country, because Empretech trains you to be an entrepreneur as a whole. And when they come out, we normally would have this conversation with them. It's like, how did you find the training? Oh, it was very hectic. I will stay up to 2 a.m. doing my assignment. But how do you see yourself now? I see myself very different. I see that I'll be doing my business very differently after the Empretech training. So training is very, very important. And there is where the starting point is. Then after Empretech, we'll be looking at specific needs and addressing those training needs. With all of that put together, when the woman is formalized, she could be catapulted to the next level because she would have had the support that she needs.
I want to do a follow-up question. You spoke on the bit regarding access to finance, which I would come to later on subsequently. But regarding the follow-up, the value propositions that you outlined, access to finance, access to markets, capacity building for the women,
networks.
Creating networks and platforms for the women, which the women should be able to leverage to enhance their businesses, and this issue of access to data. These are value propositions that any businesswoman should want to latch themselves onto. In view of you mentioning Empretech as the reference point now, or the referral point for the women in terms of training, correct me if I'm wrong, Empretech is a project, and with all projects, as we know, sooner or later it's going to come to an end. In the event Empretech comes to an end, and how soon I don't know, but I'm sure since you're referring people to them, you should have a good idea as to when that is going to be. And in view of your acknowledgement of the point that ultimately what Empretech is doing for you, you would want to do for yourselves. Now, the question is, in view of the value propositions, 5 of them that you've mentioned, the Gambia Women's Chamber of Commerce must be busy putting together its funding and financing to effectively implement all of these value propositions. How has it been so far? Because this could be one of the things that could inhibit, if you will, the chamber, the Gambia Women's Chamber of Commerce, in terms of its objectives. I make that point piggybacking on the realities that obtain at the chamber as well, in terms of its membership and the amount of funds it has to actually do what it intends to do, because it's not doing everything that it is or is supposed to do. And funding is one of the key challenges. So how is the Gambia Women of Chamber going to help preempt this problem? Or are you expecting that down the line some good venture capitalists would come and inject some funds into the affairs of the Women's Chamber?
When I started at the beginning, I told you we're building partnerships because we believe we don't want to reinvent the wheel. So whatever we want, there are players already in it. So what we're doing right now is building partnerships, and through those partnerships, financial support would also come so that we can implement some of the things that we are a priority for us. For example, I think I should take this opportunity to really thank DAI through the European Union, because most of our programs are going to be funded by them.
By DAI?
Yes, through the European Union.
The DAI, for the benefit of our listeners?
Well, they've changed. We understand that they're not giving the meaning of DAI as an acronym anymore. They're just using it as a DAI, but it's one of the European Union channels that would fund activities. They funded our launching. And right now, we also, during the launching, we also launched our mentoring and coaching program for women. And this is also going to be funded by them. So that's why I say we also have in the pipeline some arrangements for funding, in both locally and internationally. There are other partners that we're waiting to get results from, but we have reached out, and there's a lot of goodwill coming towards. So we really appreciate that. And maybe I gave Empretech as an example, but there's also the Start and Improve Your Own Business that is conducted by the GCCI. Is also a training established through collaboration with ILO, that's the International Labour Organization. So that training also is another good entrepreneurship training that can give support. So there are a couple of them. And the other area that we are also looking at in terms of training is business plans and even business profiles. It would interest you to know that most of these women also don't even have like a business profile. Our mission is to provide them with opportunities and promote their businesses. But even to have a ready profile that you can use just to start promoting the woman's business is not readily available. Talk less of them having a business plan. And these are all the things that would also come back to doing their financials properly. So we are also arranging for specific trainings like in business plan preparation and in business profiles, because we don't want to just do plans and give to them. They have to come up with their own plans, and we believe they should be trained, because these plans are not static documents. They grow and they need to be updated at regular intervals. So if you train the woman to be able to prepare her own business plan, then she'll be able to update it as time goes on against the business and the progress that she's making. So these are all things that we are in the pipeline, and some of them are almost ready.
I want to come to a point that has been of interest to business people in the country, and that has also been of concern to some. You worked at the Gambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry as Director for Corporate Services, and currently serving as the CEO of the Gambia Women's Chamber of Commerce. If we look at the Chamber of Commerce in Senegal and in other countries as well, and Francophone countries are quite renowned for this. They have very vibrant chambers of commerce. I know the modus of operandi is a little bit different from the Anglophone, or let me speak more in particular, the Gambia. membership in chambers of commerce in Francophone countries is compulsory, whereas in the Gambia it is optional. And this explains why if you go to countries like Senegal, you see the membership size of the chamber quite huge, and also the chamber quite robust and dynamic. Notwithstanding the argument that have been made by some that yes, if the Gambia Chamber of Commerce was top-notch in terms of service delivery, then you would have seen a proportionate increase, if you will, in the size of its membership. But the question I want to ask is, despite its numbers of years of existence, the Chamber has limited itself in terms of presence within the greater Banjul area. There are 7 regions in the Gambia, and Chamber is present in one of the regions. Is this an issue that the Gambia Women Chamber of Commerce is very cognizant of, and is this an issue that they would ensure that they don't suffer the same fate? Is this something that you're looking at, and do you have any plans of ensuring that your presence is felt within all the regions of the Greater Banjul area? And what would the implications of funding be for you to realize this?
Thank you very much. For us, from day one, we've said we want to go rural, because we know that those of us within the Greater Banjul area, we still have a lot of needs. Then what is the position of the woman out there who does not even have the facilities that we have here? So for us, going rural is a must, and this is where we want to make a difference. We've already started looking at various entry points into the rural Gambia. And very soon, we will begin to make our presence outside Greater Banjul area. Because for us, this is one key thing that can help build your membership base, like you said, because all of those people out there are Gambians and also need to be served. In terms of financial, again, like I said, for every milestone that we have, we've looked at measures to help get us there. So that's why for our subscription, when it comes, we are a subscription based like every chamber, you know that. But our subscription is even minimal here. But when we go out in the rural area, it's going to be even less, because if you want to include people in the rural area, you have to take a lot into consideration. And therefore, we would have a subscription rate that is far less than what we are paying out here. And also, when you look at women in the rural areas, they've got so much potential, and that these potentials need to be harnessed. And the only way you can do it is by going out there and working with them. So very soon, we will unveil our plans of going rural.
One of your value propositions relates to networking and creating an avenue through which the woman businessman, the woman entrepreneur could latch on locally and internationally, I'm sure, to enhance and grow their business. But you equally made a point in a previous point, in our discussion, that most women, even having a passport to be able to take advantage of opportunities that rest outside of this country in terms of business, is a challenge. In one of my episodes, I discussed the dynamism of women, the woman entrepreneur in Senegal, and also how it is that when you travel around the world, in various airport lounges, you even hear women Senegalese speaking in Wolof. Yeah, and these are not people that are like you and me in terms of formal education, but they are out there in the world going and striking, closing business deals, coming back into their countries and contributing to Senegal's economic development aspirations. Now, you spoke of the challenge in terms of registration or formalizing informal women businesses. If you are to realize that value proposition of enhancing the network of Gambian women businesses, a whole lot of work needs to be done, especially in terms of these women being able to have the requisite documents in order to be able to exploit opportunities outside. How do you plan to help them in this regard?
What we've realized is Gambian female entrepreneurs also have got huge potentials. But the thing is, every one of us is working in isolation. I have my small business. I've been doing what I've been doing for the past 10 years. It's okay. I am able to feed my family. That's not the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal for us is to see how we can now form them into some sort of cooperatives, so that if you find 5 good ones in the same area, you bring them together, and through that, they can expand. So what we're saying is bringing them together, getting them some support to be able to do business together. If, for example, they're processing Findi, you bring 5 of them together, you can have the volume that is required to export. And export, we all know, is good for any country because it can also bring the necessary foreign exchange back home. If it's for those ones that go out to buy goods and come back, we see everybody going, taking a couple of suitcases and coming back with a couple of suitcases. That is not the answer. The answer, again, is to bring them together. If you want to go to any country and 5 of you do the same thing, we bring you together. One of you and all 5 of you don't need to travel. We can save money by sending only one who would now go, put everything in a container, and we begin by one container, and before you know it, we'll be importing several containers. And you know, these women are very smart. You know, what they said is, look, you don't need to be there to know what is there. As soon as the one that goes gets there, all you need to do is to be taking photos and sending it on WhatsApp together with the pricing so that invoices can be made. And before you know it, the ones that are here would see the range of goods that are there, would make their decision, and the one person that is out there would be able to put everything together and have an invoice and broker the deal. So these are ways that we plan to help them. If you look at the Gambia in general, we all do business in a small way, and it's really not taking us to where we want to. So we must learn. Although when you raise the issue of cooperatives, people like, forget it. It's not going to happen. It cannot work in the Gambia. That's not it. I think the one thing that we all need, or the one ingredient for bringing people together, is trust, and that's it. Once there is trust, everything else would come into play. But if we don't trust each other, it's difficult to make a business deal together. So we begin by trusting each other, and everything else will now come into play. We will be able to get to where we want to. So for us also, the ultimate is to be bringing them together so that they can form small cooperatives, even if they are not called sub-cooperatives, but come together and be able to move their business to another level.
I perhaps understand the hesitation of women businesses not wanting to come together under a cooperative label. because of the realities and history of cooperatives in this country. And I like the point that you've made, and this seems to be one of the major challenges in terms of business development in this country, and that is trust. Because you cannot do business with someone that you do not trust. And as we often hear, trust is something that is earned. So you have to prove that you are worthy of trust for people to trust you. But on that same point, if the Gambia Women's Chamber of Commerce is to be successful, it has to bring its members together under an association, whatever that label of the association would be, cooperatives or otherwise, Kabudu or Carrefour, or whatever it is. How do you now begin to get women businesses to trust each other? I mean, is this something the Gambia Women Chamber of Commerce have thought about? Because without this, it will be very difficult for you to succeed. Because if Gambia Women Chamber of Commerce is able to bring women together in view of your plans to cover the entire regions of the country, then you're going to have a huge membership base, relatively much higher than what currently obtains at the chamber. I don't know what their plans are in that regard. And you cannot possibly deal with each one on an individual level. So this is the need why you would have to bring them together and deal with them in that regard. But to bringing them together means that you should be able to get them to trust each other. How would you do that?
Okay, they have come to us from various levels. Some have known each other before, others didn't even know themselves until they joined us. So one thing we're trying is getting them to know each other, understand what each other is doing, and then begin to do business amongst themselves. Because we want to encourage them that if I need something for now, my policy is anything I need, and I can source it from one of our members. I'm not going to go out of my membership to get it. I will get it from my members. And this is what we're beginning to encourage, that you begin to do business amongst yourself. Because through that, then, like you said, trust is earned. So if they start having deals amongst themselves and solving it successfully, there are two things there. One, they begin to understand each other's character on which trust is based. They begin to understand each one's capabilities. They begin to appreciate that I know I can do this, but I've seen that in my colleague, she has greater skills in this area. So if we were to come together and do something together, it would be successful because I'm stronger here and she's stronger there. And somebody else has another potential that we have not even tapped yet. So the starting point now is getting them to know each other and then getting them to do business amongst each other. Once we've seen that that is working very well, then we begin now to look at the other level of, okay, now that you've been doing things together, who can we bring together? And sometimes they are good at telling you, if you can bring myself and these other two women, we believe we can work together. And that's an opportunity for them to tell you that I believe I'll be more comfortable working with this person and this person rather than you imposing each on them. So they need to have a little bit of time to know each other and know where their strengths are, and then they would even help us to narrow down to who we can now bring together so that they can be supported.
Okay. I want to go back to the value propositions that you mentioned earlier, and that is access to finance. I want to believe that one of the reasons, knowingly or unknowingly, that the Gambia Women's Chamber of Commerce would have been formed would be to address or help enhance the competitiveness of our economy. The competitiveness of our economy has been very wanting. I mean, you look at the Forbes Doing Business Index report, you look at the World Bank's World Economic Forum Global Competitiveness Index report, and you look at the rankings of the Gambia, and we've not been consistent. And one of the parameters that they assess in terms of this competitiveness, and which ranks high on the, in case of the Gambia, is access and cost of finance. This is one of the value propositions of the Gambia Women Chamber of Commerce, and this is why I said, looking at your value proposition, any woman who is really serious about business should be running and knocking on your door, because you have some serious value propositions and well-meaning value propositions. How is the Gambia Women Chamber of Commerce going to help its membership to overcome this challenge that has been daunting for businesses in this country, be it a woman's business, be it a man's business, be it an established corporate business, or somebody who's just starting?
Okay, you'll recall that when we launched, Reliance Financial Services put down for us $50 million for members of GWCC. But the way we are negotiating right now is, we don't want you to look at your portfolio and tell us this is what I have for women. No, we want you to look at your portfolio and tell us that this is what I have for Gambia Women's Chamber. We want something that would distinguish us from the rest. And the one key thing, of course, we all know, is putting down the interest rate lower.
The cost.
Yes. So this is how we're negotiating right now. And we are talking to Reliance Financial Services. Last week, we had a very good meeting with Ajib, I must say. They also are putting together a facility for Gambia Women's Chamber of Commerce members. And the facility would not have been complete without the input of our members. So we came together with Ajib, and we had a frank discussion. And some of the women, like I said, they are so experienced in business. Some of them have been in business for more than 20 years. So when they speak, you learn a lot from them. So we've had those strong women that are there that have, talked about their experience when it comes to loan and how they've managed to go around it. So with all of this information built together, we believe that we are going to have a specific package for Gambian women in our chamber to have access to finance. And that's not all. Access Bank has also got something for us. We're going to be talking to Trust Bank also very soon. So we have been approached. But like I said, we are negotiating based on, you have a special interest rate for Gambia Women's Chamber of Commerce members. This is what would distinguish us from the rest. And this is what would make women want to be part of us. It cannot be business as usual.
Given the relevance that women play in our lives, given the fact that women, and here I'm talking from experience, that they are more prudent. Women in business, let me qualify that. And at the grassroots level, are more prudent in terms of managing their finances. And they are more committed to various financing schemes. I mean, I could talk of the USUSUs and the various savings and loans initiatives that you find across the country. Women have outperformed their male counterparts, even in terms of longevity. of some of these initiatives, to the point where men, husbands, even piggyback and sometimes have caused slippages, if you will, in terms of the initiatives that women have put in place as long as savings and loans are concerned. Now, I'm surprised that you have not approached, for example, the Ministry of Finance to try and see what is possible out there, because I mean, all these banks that you mentioned, yes, great initiative, and it's a move in the right direction. I'm sure they're all running because, I'm a former banker, so I can speak from, I'm speaking from a vantage point. At the end of the day, it is people's deposits that they're going to use to give to you. And they would want to ensure that there's return. And they would also want to ensure that if there isn't return, there's a fallback. Now, and I understand that you are negotiating in terms of those parameters, but it would also be apt, for the chamber, Gambia Women's Chamber of Commerce, to look at creating its own financial pool on concessionary basis. And I think the Ministry of Finance is in a vantage point to see, and when I say the Ministry of Finance, I'm talking of government, to see what they could do, for the women, because we know that if you're given money, you would find a way to ensure that that money yields dividends. So is that something that perhaps you've oversighted, or is it that, I'm sure your founding members are well connected to explore that possibility?
No, when I said at the beginning, we had written to partners, we've contacted partners, that includes all government ministries, by the way. And Ministry of Finance also, we'd had a couple of meetings with them. And there are things that we started working on. But I must also say that through YEP, we have some young women who are within the youthful age. They are below 35. So YEP also has got some facilities for them, which we've been duly informed of. There's a mini grant, there's a mini loan. So that also is part of the support that we're getting. Right now, we're also in discussion with government on the establishment of the $5 million to start the Women Enterprise Fund. There's a consultant, and we were one of the first people that she visited, and we gave our views on what we think should be the way forward in terms of financing for women. So I think very soon that would work out, and we're going to be playing a very key role in that. Eventually, when we started, that was our own aim, to get our own fund. So now, as a starting point, we're going to go use all these opportunities that are available to us. And then eventually, as we grow, we will now have our own established Women's Enterprise Fund that we would be on the GWCC.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is where we will draw the curtains. It has been a very interesting and insightful 1 hour. We are grateful to Mrs. Beatrice from Mboj for sharing her views, her expertise in terms of what obtains at the Gambia Women's Chamber of Commerce. We wish you the very best of luck, and we hope that come 6 months, 12 months down the line, when we invite you back on this platform, we will be hearing success stories. Women need to be supported. My programs has been focusing on women, and we would continue to do so, because if we are to make it as a nation, we should stop paying lip service to mainstreaming of women and girls in our economic development agenda, and take it seriously and give them the support that they require. Until we come your time next, goodbye for now. Thank you.